The text message from my daughter came at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Mom, we've decided to spend Christmas with Dad and Karen this year. We think it's better for everyone. I stared at my phone screen, reading those words over and over until they blurred through my tears. My three adult children, Sarah, 28, Michael, 25, and Emma, 22, had just chosen their stepmother over the woman who gave birth to them, raised them, and sacrificed everything for their happiness. Karen had been in their lives for exactly 4 years. I'd been their mother for their entire existence. But somehow, she'd won. If you've ever felt like a stranger in your own children's lives, if you've ever wondered how the woman who replaced you became more important than the woman who created them, stay with me. Because what I discovered about how stepmothers can systematically turn children against their biological mothers will change everything you think you know about blended families. My name is Susan. I'm 56 years old, and this is the story of how I lost my children to a woman who made destroying me her full-time job. Let me tell you about the 25 years I spent being what I thought was a good mother, only to discover that none of it mattered when a younger, prettier woman decided she wanted my family. I was 28 when I had Sarah, 31 when Michael was born, and 34 when Emma came along. For 22 years, I was a stay-at-home mom who made motherhood my entire identity. I was the room mother, the soccer mom, the one who drove to every practice, attended every school play, and made homemade Halloween costumes every year. When my marriage to Robert fell apart after 22 years, I thought the hardest part would be the divorce proceedings, the division of assets, the loneliness of starting over at 50. I never imagined that the real battle would be for my children's love. Robert and I divorced when the kids were 20, 17, and 14. It wasn't a bitter divorce. We'd simply grown apart, wanted different things, fell out of love gradually rather than dramatically. We agreed on joint custody, though the kids primarily lived with me since Robert traveled frequently for work. We'll always be a family, I told the kids during our family meeting about the divorce. Nothing will change how much we love you. I meant every word. What I didn't know was that Robert had already started dating someone new. Karen was 34 when she entered our lives, 12 years younger than Robert, 22 years younger than me. She was a marketing executive with no children of her own, a woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine rather than at a middle school soccer game. "She's nice, Mom," Sarah told me after meeting Karen for the first time. "She's really interested in hearing about our lives." At first, I was grateful. I wanted Robert to be happy, and if Karen made him happy, that was good for everyone. I even appreciated that she seemed to genuinely care about my children. But slowly, things began to change. It started with small things. Karen would take the kids shopping and buy them expensive clothes I couldn't afford on my teacher's salary. She'd plan elaborate outings, Broadway shows, expensive dinners, weekend trips to theme parks. "Karen got us tickets to see Hamilton," Emma would tell me excitedly after spending the weekend at Robert's house. "And she said we can go to Disney World this summer." I'd smile and act happy for them, but inside I felt a growing sense of inadequacy. How could I compete with someone who had a 6-figure salary and no other financial responsibilities? Karen was strategic in ways I didn't recognize at the time. She'd never criticize me directly to the children, but she'd make subtle comments that planted seeds of doubt. "Your mom works so hard," she'd say to them. "It's such a shame she doesn't have time to do fun things with you anymore." "I wish I could help your mom more," she'd tell them after buying them something expensive. "But I know she's proud and wouldn't want charity." She positioned herself as the fun, available, generous alternative to their tired, struggling, financially limited mother. When Robert and Karen got married 2 years after our divorce, she became their stepmother officially. But she'd been working to replace me long before the wedding. The kids started spending more time at Robert and Karen's house. It was bigger, newer, in a better neighborhood. Karen had redecorated it to be kid-friendly with a game room, a home theater, and a pool. "Can we have the graduation party at Dad's house?" Michael asked when he was finishing high school. "Karen said she'd hire a caterer and everything." "Of course," I said, swallowing my hurt. "Whatever you want." I watched from the sidelines as Karen planned my son's graduation party, hired photographers, and played hostess to all the relatives and friends. I felt like a guest at my own child's celebration. But the real shift happened gradually, so subtly that I didn't notice until it was too late. My children started calling me less frequently. When they did call, they'd mention Karen constantly. "Karen said this. Karen thinks that. Karen helped me with this problem." They'd ask Karen for advice about college, relationships, career decisions. They'd spend holidays at Robert's house because Karen makes such a big deal about celebrations. I told myself it was normal. Blended families were complicated. The kids were just enjoying having another adult who cared about them. I was wrong. Karen wasn't just caring about my children. She was systematically replacing me in their lives, and I was too naive to see it happening. What I discovered next would show me that some stepmothers don't just want to love your children. They want to erase you entirely. Stay with me, because the evidence I found will prove that Karen's campaign against me was deliberate and calculated. Have you ever felt like you were being erased from your own children's lives? That's exactly what was happening to me, and I didn't realize it until I found the evidence that proved Karen's campaign against me was deliberate and calculated. The first real sign that something was wrong came during Emma's graduation. I'd been planning to attend for months, had booked my hotel room, arranged time off work, and bought a new dress for the occasion. 3 days before the ceremony, Emma called me. "Mom, I need to talk to you about graduation," she said, her voice strained. "Dad and Karen are flying in, and they've already made dinner reservations for the family celebration afterward." "That's wonderful, honey. I'm looking forward to meeting them there." "Well, that's the thing. Karen made reservations for 4 people. She didn't know you were coming." "She didn't know I was coming to my own graduation?" "She just assumed. I mean, Dad is paying for my college, and they've been more involved in the day-to-day stuff." "Emma, I'm your mother. Of course I'm coming to your graduation." "I know, Mom, but the restaurant is really exclusive, and they can't add another person to the reservation. Maybe you could come to the ceremony, and then we could have lunch the next day, just the 2 of us." I was being asked to attend my daughter's graduation, but skip the family celebration because my replacement hadn't planned for my presence. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, because what else could I say? Whatever makes you happy. That night, I cried harder than I had since my divorce. But I told myself it was just a misunderstanding, just poor planning, just one of those awkward situations that happen in blended families. I was still making excuses for what was actually a deliberate campaign to erase me. The pattern became clearer over the following months. I'd hear about family events after they'd happened. I'd see photos on social media of family gatherings that didn't include me. My children would mention conversations with Karen about major life decisions that they'd never discussed with me. When Sarah got engaged, she asked Karen to help her plan the wedding. When Michael got his first job, he celebrated with Robert and Karen. When Emma had her wisdom teeth removed, she recovered at Robert and Karen's house because Karen took time off work to take care of me. I was becoming a peripheral figure in my own children's lives, and every time I tried to address it, I was told I was being dramatic or jealous or making things difficult. The breaking point came last Christmas when I received that text message about them spending the holiday with Robert and Karen instead of me. I'd hosted Christmas for our family every year for 25 years. It was our tradition, our special time together. I had already bought gifts, planned the menu, decorated the house. But they'd chosen Karen's first Christmas as a married stepmother over their own mother's 25 years tradition? That's when I decided to investigate what was really happening. I started paying closer attention to my children's social media posts, their casual comments, their explanations for why they were always too busy to spend time with me. What I discovered was a systematic campaign to position Karen as the real mom and me as the obligation they had to manage. I found text messages between my children. Emma had left her phone at my house and asked me to forward a message that revealed conversations I'd never been told about. Karen thinks mom is being too clingy, Sarah had texted Michael. She says it's normal for adult children to create distance from needy parents. Karen offered to pay for my car repairs, Michael had texted back. She said not to tell mom because it would hurt her feelings that she can't help financially. I'm thinking about asking Karen to be my matron of honor instead of mom, Sarah had written to Emma. Karen says it would be more appropriate since she's married and mom is still single. Karen had been having private conversations with my children about me, positioning herself as the wise advisor and me as the problematic ex-wife they needed to manage. But the most devastating discovery came when I found a group chat between Robert, Karen, and my 3 children that I wasn't included in. The chat was called Real Family, and it contained months of conversations about family plans, decisions, and discussions that I was completely excluded from. Mom's birthday is next week, Emma had written. Should we do something? Let's just send flowers, Karen had responded. We don't want to encourage her to think she's still the center of the family. Karen's right, Robert had added. Susan needs to learn that you kids have your own lives now. They were discussing me like I was a problem to be managed rather than the mother who'd raised these children. But the most devastating discovery came when I found a message from Sarah. Sometimes I forget that Karen isn't our real mom. She just fits into our family so much better than mom ever did. I sat in my kitchen, reading these messages on Emma's phone, and realized that I hadn't lost my children to their stepmother by accident. I'd lost them because Karen had systematically worked to replace me, and my own ex-husband had helped her do it. What I did next would prove that sometimes the only way to save your relationship with your children is to fight for it, even when that means exposing the woman who's been manipulating them against you. Stay with me. You won't believe how I turned the tables on Karen. Sometimes the most devastating betrayals come with digital receipts, and Karen had left a trail of evidence that would expose her systematic campaign to erase me from my children's lives. After discovering the Real Family group chat, I knew I needed more evidence before confronting anyone. I couldn't just accuse Karen of manipulating my children without proof. They'd dismiss me as the jealous ex-wife she'd already painted me as. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I became a detective in my own family's life. I started by documenting everything, every canceled plan, every last-minute change. Every time my children chose Karen over me, I created a timeline that showed the pattern of my gradual exclusion from their lives. But the real breakthrough came when Emma left her laptop at my house after a weekend visit. Just grab anything you need from it, she'd said casually. The password is Karen 2019. That's when she really became part of our family. Even her password was a tribute to her stepmother. I told myself I was just checking her email to forward something she'd ask about. But what I found was so much worse than I had imagined. Karen had been emailing my children regularly, and these weren't just friendly check-ins. They were strategic communications designed to undermine my relationship with them. I noticed your mom seemed upset about the graduation dinner situation. I hope you know that wasn't intentional. Your mom has a tendency to take things personally, and I don't want you to feel guilty about that. It's not your job to manage her emotions. Your mom called asking about your job interview. I didn't tell her you'd already gotten the position because I thought you might want to share that news yourself, but I do think it's important that you start setting boundaries about what information you share with her. You're an adult now, and you don't owe her a detailed report of your life. I know your mom wants to be involved in wedding planning, but I think it's important that you make decisions based on what you want, not what will make her happy. This is your day, not hers. Every email was carefully crafted to sound supportive while actually encouraging my children to distance themselves from me. Karen was positioning herself as the wise advisor protecting them from their difficult mother. But the emails I found in Karen's sent folder, she had apparently used Emma's laptop to check her own email, revealed the true scope of her manipulation. She'd been researching parental alienation tactics and implementing them systematically. The key is never to directly criticize the biological parent. Instead, you position yourself as the protector. You validate their frustrations with their mother while positioning yourself as the reasonable alternative. I've been working on this for 3 years now. The children are starting to see Susan as needy and dramatic, while I'm seen as stable and supportive. It's working exactly as planned. She'd been strategically planning to replace me for 3 years. I found email exchanges with Robert where they discussed their strategy for handling me. Susan is starting to notice that the kids are pulling away. She's asking more questions about why they're always busy when she wants to see me. Let me handle it. I'll talk to the kids about setting healthy boundaries. The key is to make them think it's their idea to create distance. "You're brilliant at this," Robert had replied. "The kids trust you completely now. They come to you with problems they used to take to Susan." "That's the goal," Karen had written back. "I want to be their primary maternal figure. Susan can be the biological mother, but I want to be their real mom." My ex-husband and his wife had been conspiring to erase me from my children's lives, and they'd been successful. But the most damaging evidence was a document Karen had created called Operation Replacement, a detailed plan for systematically taking over my role as the children's mother. Phase 1, establish trust and position myself as the fun, supportive alternative. Phase 2, create financial dependence by providing things Susan can't afford. Phase 3, become their primary advisor for major life decisions. Phase 4, gradually exclude Susan from family events and celebrations. Phase 5, position Susan as the difficult parent while I'm the reasonable one. Phase 6, encourage the children to see me as their real mom. She'd been following this plan for 4 years, and it had worked perfectly. I printed everything, every email, every document, every piece of evidence of their conspiracy against me. Then I sat in my living room and planned my response. Because if Karen thought she could systematically destroy my relationship with my children and get away with it, she was about to learn that she'd underestimated the wrong mother. I wasn't going to lose my children without a fight. What I did next would expose Karen's manipulation to my children and prove that sometimes the only way to save your family is to reveal the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Stay with me. You won't believe how my children reacted when they saw the evidence. Have you ever had to show your own children evidence that someone they love has been manipulating them? It's one of the most heartbreaking things a parent can do, but sometimes it's the only way to save your family. I spent 3 days deciding how to handle the evidence I discovered. I could confront Karen directly, but she'd just deny everything and paint me as the unstable ex-wife going through her stepdaughter's private communications. I could tell Robert, but he was clearly complicit in the plan. The only option was to show my children the truth and let them decide what to do with it. I called a family meeting, something I hadn't done since her father and I divorced. I asked all 3 of them to come to my house on Sunday afternoon for what I called an important conversation about our family. Sarah arrived first, looking annoyed. Mom, I hope this isn't going to be one of those guilt trips about us not spending enough time with you. We're adults now and we have our own lives. Michael came in looking uncomfortable. Karen said you might be feeling left out lately. She thinks maybe you need to find some hobbies or make new friends so you're not so dependent on us for company. Emma was the last to arrive, and she looked genuinely concerned. Mom, are you okay? You sounded really serious on the phone. I looked at my 3 children, these beautiful adults I'd raised, who'd become strangers to me over the past 4 years, and felt my heart breaking all over again. I need to show you something, I said, placing printed copies of Karen's emails and documents on the coffee table. And I need you to read everything before you say anything. Mom, what is this? Sarah asked, picking up the first page. It's evidence that Karen has been systematically working to replace me in your lives for 4 years. That's ridiculous, Michael said immediately. Karen loves us. She's not trying to replace anyone. Please, I said, just read it. All of it. Then we can talk. I watched their faces as they read through Karen's emails, her correspondence with Robert, her Operation Replacement document. I watched confusion turn to shock, shock turn to hurt, and hurt turn to anger. Sarah was the first to speak. This can't be real. Karen wouldn't. She's been like a mother to us. She's been playing a role, I said gently, a very calculated role, designed to make you think I was the problem while she positioned herself as the solution. Emma was crying as she read the document outlining Karen's 5-phase plan. She wrote that she wanted to be our real mom, but you're our real mom. According to this, Michael said, his voice shaking with anger, she's been manipulating us for years. Every time she gave us advice about you, every time she suggested we needed boundaries, every time she positioned herself as the reasonable one, it was all part of a plan, I finished. A plan to erase me from your lives and replace me with herself. Sarah threw the papers down on the table. I don't believe this. You're just jealous because we have a good relationship with Karen. You probably made all of this up. Sarah, Emma said quietly, this is Karen's email address. These are her words. Mom couldn't have made this up. Then she hacked into Karen's email or something. There has to be an explanation. Michael was staring at one particular email. Remember when I got that job offer and Karen suggested I not tell Mom right away? She said it was because I should make my own decisions without Mom's input. But according to this email, it was because she wanted to be the first person I shared good news with. And remember when I was stressed about wedding planning and Karen kept saying I shouldn't feel obligated to include Mom in every decision? She said it was about me being independent, but she was actually trying to exclude me, I said, from your wedding, from your lives, from being your mother. Emma looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Mom, we've been so horrible to you. We believed everything she said. We thought you were being clingy and dramatic, but she was the one making us think that. You weren't horrible, I said. You were being manipulated by someone who's very good at it, someone who studied how to turn children against their parents and implemented those tactics systematically. But why? Michael asked. Why would she do this? What did she have to gain? She wanted to be your mother, I said simply. Not your stepmother, your mother. She wanted to completely replace me in your lives, and she almost succeeded. Sarah was quiet for a long time, rereading the emails. Finally, she looked up at me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I can't believe we fell for this. I can't believe we chose her over you. You didn't know, I said. That's what makes her manipulation so effective. She made you think every decision was your own idea. What do we do now? Emma asked. How do we fix this? First, I said, you need to decide if you want to fix it, because confronting Karen about this is going to change everything. Your relationship with her, your relationship with your father, your family dynamic, everything will change. Good, Michael said firmly, because what we have now isn't a real family. It's a lie built on manipulation and deceit. I want to confront her, Sarah said. I want to look her in the eye and ask her how she could do this to us, to you. And I want Dad to know that we know he was part of this, Emma added. He helped her manipulate us against our own mother. I looked at my 3 children, really looked at them for the first time in years. They were angry, hurt, and determined to make things right. For the first time in 4 years, I felt like I had my children back. What happened when we confronted Karen would prove that some people will go to incredible lengths to maintain their lies, even when faced with undeniable evidence. Stay with me. You won't believe how far she was willing to go to keep my children under her control. Sometimes the most satisfying moments come when manipulators are forced to face their victims, with the truth laid bare between them. We decided to confront Karen and Robert together, as a united front. My children wanted to see Karen's reaction when presented with the evidence of her manipulation, and they wanted their father to understand that his complicity had been discovered. Sarah called Robert and asked if we could all meet at their house for a family discussion. She didn't mention what it was about, just said it was important and that I would be coming too. Susan's coming? I could hear Robert's voice through the phone. Is everything okay? We'll explain when we get there, Dad. When we arrived at Robert and Karen's house, the house that had become the center of my children's lives while I was pushed to the periphery, Karen greeted us with her usual warm smile. Susan, what a nice surprise! It's been too long since we've all been together like this. The irony of her words wasn't lost on any of us. She'd spent 4 years ensuring we were never all together like this. Let's sit in the living room, Robert said, looking nervous. Can I get anyone something to drink? This isn't a social visit, Dad. We need to talk to you and Karen about something serious. We all sat down, and I placed the printed emails and documents on Karen's coffee table, the same way I had done with my children 3 days earlier. We found these, Sarah said, looking directly at Karen. And we need you to explain them. Karen's face went pale as she recognized her own emails. Where did you get these? These are private communications. Private communications about manipulating us against our mother. Private communications about your plan to replace her in our lives. Robert picked up the operation replacement document and started reading. I watched his face change as he realized the scope of what Karen had been doing. Karen, he said slowly, what is this? It's taken out of context, Karen said quickly. I was just trying to help the children establish healthy boundaries with Susan. She was being overly involved in their lives, and I thought You thought you'd destroy my relationship with my children, I interrupted. You documented it, Karen. You called it Operation Replacement. You told someone in an email that you wanted to be their real mom while I was just the biological mother. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Sarah demanded. Because according to these emails, you've been planning this for 4 years. You researched parental alienation tactics and used them against our mother. Karen looked around the room, realizing that her usual manipulation tactics weren't going to work. My children were no longer the naive young adults she'd been controlling. I love you kids, she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Everything I did was because I love you and want what's best for you.
What's best for us was having a relationship with our mother, Michael said. What's best for us was not being manipulated into choosing sides in a war we didn't even know was happening. You made us feel guilty for loving our own mother, Emma added. You made us choose you over the woman who gave birth to us and raised us. Robert was still reading through the documents, his face growing darker with each page. Karen, he said, you told me you were just trying to help the kids adjust to our blended family. You never said anything about replacing Susan. I wasn't trying to replace anyone, Karen protested, but her voice lacked conviction. You literally wrote Operation Replacement, Sarah said. You documented your plan to make us see you as your real mom. How is that not trying to replace her? Karen's tears turned to anger. Your mother was holding you back. She was too dependent on you, too needy. I was helping you become independent adults. By turning us against her? Michael asked. By making us think she was the problem when you were the one manipulating us? I gave you things she couldn't give you. I took you places she couldn't afford. I was there for you when she was working all the time. You were buying our affection, Emma said, and using it against our mother who was working all the time to support us after the divorce. You made us feel guilty for loving our own mother, Sarah added. Do you understand how sick that is? Finally, Robert spoke up. Karen, I can't believe you did this. I trusted you with my children, and you used that trust to manipulate them. You helped her, Dad. These emails show you discussing strategy with her. You were part of this. Robert's face crumpled. I thought, Karen said Susan was having trouble adjusting to you kids being adults. She said she was just helping you establish boundaries. She was lying to you, Dad. She was manipulating all of us. Karen stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. I've been nothing but good to you children. I've loved you and supported you and been there for you. You've been grooming us, Sarah said coldly. You've been systematically destroying our relationship with our mother while positioning yourself as the alternative. That's not love, that's manipulation. And it worked, I said quietly. For 4 years, it worked perfectly. My children chose you over me for holidays, celebrations.
Major life events. You got exactly what you wanted. Karen looked at me with pure hatred. You were never going to let them grow up. You were going to keep them tied to you forever, dependent and guilty. I freed them from that. I isolated them from their mother, I replied. You made them think loving me was a weakness instead of a strength. Well, it doesn't matter now, Karen said, her mask finally slipping completely. They're adults. They can choose who they want in their lives. And for 4 years, they chose me. Because you manipulated them into choosing you, Emma said. But now we know the truth. Karen looked around the room at the faces of the people she'd been manipulating, and I saw the moment she realized she lost. Fine, she said. You want your precious mother back? You can have her, but don't come crying to me when you remember why you needed distance from her in the first place. She stormed out of the room, leaving us sitting in stunned silence. What happened next would prove that sometimes the end of one toxic relationship is the beginning of healing for everyone involved. Stay with me for the final parts where you'll see how my family rebuilt itself on truth instead of manipulation. Sometimes the most beautiful relationships are the ones that are rebuilt from complete destruction because they're founded on truth instead of lies. After Karen stormed out of the room, we sat in silence for several minutes. The weight of 4 years of manipulation was settling on all of us, and nobody knew quite what to say. Robert was the first to speak. Susan, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. I helped someone systematically destroy your relationship with our children, and I didn't even realize what I was doing. You didn't realize because she's very good at what she does, I said. She made you think you were helping the kids establish healthy boundaries when you were actually helping her isolate them from me. But I should have seen it, he said, tears in his eyes. I should have noticed that you were being excluded from everything. I should have questioned why the kids suddenly didn't want to spend time with you. Sarah reached over and took my hand. Mom, I don't know how to apologize for what we put you through. We made you feel like you weren't wanted in your own children's lives. You were being manipulated by an expert, I said. Karen studied how to turn children against their parents, and she implemented those tactics perfectly. You're not to blame for falling for it. But we should have seen through it, Michael said. We should have questioned why we suddenly felt so differently about you. How could you have seen through it when she was so careful to make every suggestion seem like it was coming from a place of love and support? I asked. She never directly criticized me. She just planted seeds of doubt and let them grow. Emma was crying. I feel so stupid. Every time you tried to spend time with us and we were too busy, every time you wanted to be included in something and we made excuses, she was behind all of it. What matters now is that you know the truth, I said, and we can decide how to move forward from here. I want to move forward with you in our lives, Sarah said firmly. I want to go back to having Christmas at your house like we used to. I want to include you in my wedding planning. I want my children to know their grandmother. I want to start calling you when I have good news again, Michael added. I want to ask your advice about important decisions. I want to remember what it feels like to have a mother who isn't trying to manipulate me. I want to spend time with you without feeling guilty about it. I want to remember why I used to love our mother-daughter days before Karen made me think they were unhealthy. Robert looked at all of us. What about Karen and me? What happens to our marriage now that you all know what she did? That's between you and Karen, Dad, Sarah said firmly. But I can tell you that I don't want her in my life anymore. I can't trust someone who manipulated me for 4 years. I don't want her at my wedding, Sarah continued. I don't want her involved in planning it. I don't want her there, and I don't want her in any photos. She's not my family. I feel the same way, Michael said. I can't have a relationship with someone who systematically tried to destroy my relationship with my mother. Me too, Emma agreed. I know she's your wife, Dad, but she's not my stepmother anymore. She's just the woman who manipulated us against our mom. Robert nodded slowly. I understand. And honestly, I don't know if I can stay married to someone who could do what she did. I thought I knew her, but the woman who wrote Operation Replacement is a stranger to me. Over the following weeks, we began the slow process of rebuilding our relationships. It wasn't easy. 4 years of manipulation had left scars on all of us. My children had to learn to trust their own feelings about me again, instead of seeing me through Karen's filter. I had to learn to believe that they genuinely wanted me in their lives again, not just out of guilt about what had happened. We started with small steps, coffee dates with just one child at a time, phone calls that weren't rushed or filled with excuses, family dinners where we could talk openly about what we'd all been through. Sarah asked me to help her plan her wedding, and we spent hours looking at venues and dresses and flowers, the kind of mother-daughter bonding I'd been excluded from for years. Michael started calling me for advice about his career, his relationships, his future plans. He said he'd forgotten how much he valued my perspective until Karen's voice wasn't drowning it out. Emma and I resumed our tradition of weekend shopping trips and movie dates. She said she'd missed having a mother she could talk to without feeling like she was being analyzed or manipulated. Robert filed for divorce from Karen 2 months after our confrontation. He said he couldn't stay married to someone who'd systematically abused his children's trust and destroyed their relationship with their mother. Karen tried to fight the divorce, claiming that we'd all misunderstood her intentions and that she'd only been trying to help. But the evidence of her manipulation was too extensive to deny. She also tried to reach out to my children individually, sending long emails explaining her actions and asking for forgiveness. But they'd learned to recognize her manipulation tactics and they didn't respond. The final chapter of our story would prove that families can heal from even the most devastating betrayals when they're committed to truth and genuine love. Stay with me for the conclusion,
where you'll see how we created something even stronger than what we'd lost. 1 year after discovering Karen's manipulation, I'm sitting in my kitchen on Christmas morning, watching my 3 adult children make breakfast together while their father sets the table, and I'm amazed by how much stronger our family became after it was nearly destroyed. This is the first Christmas we've spent together as a family in 5 years, not because of divorce or scheduling conflicts, but because we all chose to be here, together, without manipulation or guilt or hidden agendas. Sarah's wedding is next month, and I'm not just invited, I'm her matron of honor. She asked me to fill that role 3 months ago, saying, "I want the woman who raised me to stand beside me when I get married, not the woman who tried to replace her." Michael got promoted at work last week, and I was the first person he called with the news. He said, "I wanted to share this with my mom first, the way it should have always been." Emma's graduating from law school in the spring, and she's asked me to host the celebration party. She said, "I want to celebrate at the house where I grew up, with the mother who supported my dreams even when I was too manipulated to appreciate it." Robert and I have developed a friendship that's healthier than our marriage ever was. We co-parent our adult children now in a way we never managed when we were married, united by our shared commitment to rebuilding what Karen had tried to destroy. "I'll never forgive myself for helping her manipulate our children against you," he told me recently, "but I'm grateful that we caught it before it was too late to fix." The healing process wasn't easy. There were months of family therapy, difficult conversations about trust and manipulation, and moments when we all wondered if we could truly move past what had happened. But we learned something important. Relationships built on truth are stronger than relationships built on manipulation, even when the truth is painful. My children had to confront the fact that they'd been manipulated for years, that their feelings about me had been artificially influenced by someone with her own agenda. That was a hard pill to swallow for young adults who prided themselves on their independence and good judgment. I had to confront the fact that I'd been too passive in fighting for my relationship with my children, too willing to accept their explanations for why they were pulling away, too afraid of being seen as the difficult ex-wife to advocate for myself. Robert had to confront the fact that he'd been complicit in his wife's manipulation of his children, that his desire to keep Karen happy had blinded him to what she was doing to our family. But through all that difficult self-examination, we found our way back to each other. We established new traditions to replace the ones that had been corrupted by Karen's influence. We created new memories to overlay the painful ones from the years when our family was fractured. Most importantly, we learned to communicate directly with each other instead of allowing anyone else to interpret our words or motivations. "No more intermediaries," Sarah said during one of our family therapy sessions. "If Mom has something to say to us, she says it directly. If we have concerns about Mom, we address them with her, not with someone else who might have their own agenda." The experience also taught my children valuable lessons about manipulation and toxic relationships that will serve them well throughout their lives. "I can spot manipulation tactics now," Michael told me. "Karen taught me what to look for, even though that wasn't her intention. I'll never let anyone turn me against people I love again." "I understand now how subtle emotional abuse can be," Emma added. "Karen never yelled at us or called us names. She just slowly poisoned our thoughts about you until we believed her version of reality instead of trusting our own experiences." "I'm actually grateful for what happened in a weird way," Sarah said. "Not grateful that it happened, but grateful that we caught it and learned from it. I'm a stronger person now, and I have a better relationship with all of you than I ever had before." 6 months ago, we received word that Karen had moved to another state and remarried. Apparently, she'd found another divorced man with children and was starting the process all over again. "Should we warn his ex-wife?" Emma asked when we heard the news. "I've been thinking about that," I said, "and I think we should. No mother should go through what I went through if we can prevent it." So we reached out to Karen's new husband's ex-wife and shared our story. She was grateful for the warning and said she'd already noticed some concerning patterns in how Karen interacted with her children. "You probably saved my relationship with my kids," she told me. "I was starting to feel like they were pulling away from me, and now I understand why." Today, as I watch my family laugh and joke and enjoy each other's company without any hidden agendas or manipulation, I feel grateful for the journey we've been on. We lost 4 years to Karen's manipulation, but we gained something more valuable: a family relationship built on truth, direct communication, and genuine love. Stay with me for
The final part, where I'll share the most important lessons I learned about protecting your family from manipulation and rebuilding relationships after betrayal. 2 years after exposing Karen's manipulation, I've become an advocate for parents who are being systematically alienated from their children by step-parents, and I want to share the warning signs and strategies that could save your family from what mine went through. The work I do now, through my support group, Mothers Against Parental Alienation, has connected me with hundreds of parents who've experienced similar manipulation. What I've learned is that Karen's tactics weren't unique. They're part of a playbook that manipulative step-parents use to replace biological parents in their children's lives. Here are the warning signs every parent should watch for. The gradual exclusion pattern. It starts small. You're not included in a dinner reservation. You hear about family events after they happen. Your children start making major decisions without consulting you. Each incident seems minor, but together they form a pattern of systematic exclusion. The financial manipulation. The step-parent provides expensive gifts, experiences, or opportunities that you can't match, then uses your financial limitations to make you seem inadequate. They position themselves as the generous provider, while you're painted as the struggling, limited option. The advisor replacement. Your children stop coming to you for advice and start consulting the step-parent instead. They quote the step-parent's opinions, seek the step-parent's approval, and gradually stop valuing your perspective on their lives. The boundary manipulation. The step-parent encourages your children to create healthy boundaries with you, but these boundaries are actually walls designed to limit your access to your children's lives. Normal parental involvement is reframed as being clingy or overbearing. The emotional reframing. Your natural parental emotions, missing your children, wanting to be involved in their lives, feeling hurt when excluded, are reframed as character flaws. You're painted as needy, dramatic, or unable to let go. If you recognize these patterns in your own family, here's what I wish I'd done differently. Document everything. Keep records of canceled plans, exclusions from events, and changes in your children's behavior towards you. Patterns are easier to see when they're written down over time. Communicate directly. Don't allow anyone else to be the intermediary between you and your children. If there are issues in your relationship, address them directly rather than accepting someone else's interpretation of your children's feelings. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't let anyone convince you that your parental instincts are paranoia or jealousy. Seek professional help early. Family therapy can help identify manipulation tactics before they completely destroy your relationships. A neutral third party can see patterns that you might miss. Maintain your own support system. Don't become isolated. Stay connected to friends, family members, and other parents who can provide perspective on your situation. The most important lesson I learned is that fighting for your relationship with your children isn't selfish. It's necessary. Children need their biological parents in their lives, and anyone who systematically works to destroy that relationship is harming the children, not helping them. I thought I was protecting my kids by not making them choose sides, I tell the parents in my support group, but I wasn't protecting them. I was abandoning them to a manipulator who was using their love against them. My children have told me that they wish I'd fought harder for our relationship earlier. They wish I'd questioned their sudden change in behavior toward me instead of accepting their explanations at face value. We were kids being manipulated by an adult. We needed you to be the adult who protected us from that manipulation, even if we didn't understand that's what was happening at the time. The work I do now has helped dozens of families recognize and escape similar manipulation.
I've testified in custody cases where step-parents were using alienation tactics. I've provided evidence that helped judges understand the difference between children naturally growing up and children being systematically turned against their parents. But the most rewarding part of my work is the families I've helped save before the damage became irreversible. Last month, I received a call from a mother whose ex-husband's new wife was using Karen's exact playbook. Because she recognized the warning signs early, she was able to address the manipulation before her children were completely turned against her. "Your story saved my family," she told me. "My kids are still talking to me, still including me in their lives, still coming to me for advice. If I hadn't known what to look for, I would have lost them the same way you lost yours." That's why I share my story, despite how painful it is to relive. Every family I help save makes the 4 years I lost with my children feel meaningful. My relationship with my children now is stronger than it ever was before Karen's manipulation because it's built on complete honesty and direct communication. We've learned to value each other in ways we took for granted before. "I never want to take our relationship for granted again," Emma told me recently. "I know now how precious it is and how easily it can be destroyed by someone with bad intentions." "I'm grateful that we found our way back to each other," Michael added, "but I'm even more grateful that we learned how to protect our family from people who would try to destroy it." Sarah, who's now married and expecting her first child, has asked me to be very involved in her baby's life. She said, "I want my child to know their grandmother, and I want to make sure no one ever comes between us the way Karen came between you and us." If you're reading this and recognizing patterns in your own family, please don't wait the way I did. Trust your instincts, document what's happening, and fight for your relationship with your children. They need you more than you know, even if they've been convinced otherwise. Your children's love for you is real, even when it's been buried under layers of manipulation. With truth, patience, and determination, that love can be uncovered and restored. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what's truly worth fighting for.
Have you ever felt like you were being replaced in your own children's lives? Have you noticed warning signs of parental alienation in your family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help another parent recognize what's happening before it's too late.